I'm Diane Macedo in New York.
And I'm Gio Benitez in Tampa, Florida. We want to get right to our top story. Hurricane Ian is now approaching Category 5 strength. The massive storm is already a Category 4 and is set to make landfall on Florida's west coast in just a few hours now. Storm surge could reach up to 16 feet in the Fort Myers area. President Biden today urged people to follow evacuation orders and promised the federal government will help with recovery efforts. Listen in.
The storm is incredibly dangerous, to state the obvious. It's life-threatening. You should obey all warnings and directions from emergency officials. Don't take anything for granted. Use their judgment, not yours. We'll be there to help you clean up and rebuild, to help you get Florida get moving again. And we'll be there at every step of the way.
And take a look at this video showing the size of the storm from space. Nearly 200 miles across just at the core. And this is Tampa Bay right now. The storm is so big that while the area is no longer expected to take a direct hit, it is still expected to see hurricane force winds. We have full team coverage throughout the day. And Gio, I know you've been there since the beginning. What are you seeing right now?
So, Diane, we are just now really beginning to see this wind and this rain really picking up here. And we've been seeing that throughout the day. But now this is going to be something that's going to be happening all through the day. This is going to be a day-long event, perhaps even into tomorrow. And you just mentioned the size of that storm. Look at the eye. The eye alone is 40 miles wide. The eye wall alone is 20 miles wide. So this is a massive storm that will affect a large percentage of the state. Usually we look at the eye and we say, okay, well, wherever this lands, that's going to be a problem. Well, in this case, we're not looking at that specific spot because it is so wide. And so a good large portion of the southwest coast of Florida will be affected by this. In fact, some of the meteorologists here were saying that as it goes ahead and it goes up the coast, you will actually still see that eye wall sort of touch parts of the Tampa Bay area, the Sarasota area, because it's so big. The storm will be a lot weaker by then, but we are really concerned about that.
The time to get out is over. The time to evacuate, that passed. So how are people preparing in these final hours?
Well, right now, it's time to hunker down. We have been looking and driving around, Diane, and not a whole lot of people are out there. They are listening to the warnings. They are heeding those warnings, and they are prepared. A lot of people here in the Tampa Bay area took this very seriously, and I think that's the case along the southwest coast. I hope that's the case, because no doubt about it, this is going to be a serious storm. Again, when you look at the size and the strength, just to put this into perspective, it is just 2 miles per hour away from being a Category 5 storm. So that is a massive, strong system that's coming the way here. And it's something that we have not seen here on this coast of Florida in a very, very long time. Why don't we go ahead and get the latest forecast now? Let's get right to ABC meteorologist Greg Dutra. He joins us now with the very latest. Greg, what are you seeing?
Gio, you're absolutely right. This has tried to be compared to, say, Hurricane Charlie or Irma, and it's not either of those. It's bigger, it's got high winds, and now extreme warning. A wind warning has been issued for Bonita Springs, Sanibel too. I just checked the Doppler velocity data moments before you tossed to me. I just put my phone down after looking at it. 100+ miles per hour is what the Doppler radar is saying for wind velocities. That's going to be sustained winds for hours and hours as this pushes on shore. Again, there is that extreme wind warning. You treat that like you would treat a very large tornado warning. They're battening the hatches in Sanibel now. Here's kind of a 3D view. You can see the eye structure, a very symmetrical eye, very few clouds in the middle, and we are just hours from this making its way on shore. Could even be shortly after lunchtime Eastern time. Category 4 now, as Gio said, just 2 miles per hour below Category 5 strength, gust up to 190 miles per hour. Let's track this as it makes its way inland, and we're dealing with those wind gusts now that are up to 54 in Fort Myers, and Punta Gorda seeing 61 miles per hour, but those are going to go very quickly, very high in just the next about 20 or 30 minutes. 12 to 18 feet for that storm surge right in the area that also has the extreme wind warning. It even extends 6 to 10 feet as you go up to Sarasota. And as Gio was mentioning, 4 to 6 feet in Tampa is still nothing to sneeze at. I just saw a video from the Sunshine Bridge, and it is rocking and rolling there at this time. Taking a look at this track as it makes its way across Florida, very quickly dropping to a Category 1. I don't want you to get hung up on that. It is still going to bring widespread rainfall. It could be anywhere from 15 to 25 inches of total rain. and it's not over there. It then moves off the East Coast and possibly re-strengthens a little bit as a tropical storm and makes its way around Charleston, bringing impacts that far north. But here is that 15 to 25 inches of rain extending almost all the way inland to Orlando. Over 200,000 now without power. It is going to take weeks or even months to restore power and living conditions in areas from Fort Myers and farther inland. We're going to take a look at this again throughout the entire day today as we are getting set right about now for landfall. Diane?
All right.
Yeah, Greg, no doubt about it. And you don't want to get hung up on that category number, because we've seen tropical storms that have been very, very strong here in Florida. And so you got to just make sure that you are prepared no matter what. Greg, thank you. We will go back to you very soon throughout the broadcast. Let's go to White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks. She is live now with more on the federal response. Mary Alice, you were just at that briefing with the FEMA administrator. What's the latest?
Yeah, Gio, they just finished a briefing here. The FEMA administrator, the director of the American Red Cross, and the director of NOAA, and their message was twofold. One, that this storm is huge and significant. The director of NOAA, they've been closely tracking this storm. He said this is the kind of storm that we are going to be talking about for years to come. And the second part of their message was that, of course, the federal government is prepared, and they are doing everything they can to make sure that right now the people of Florida have what they need. They have equipment, they have search and rescue teams and power teams ready to respond as soon as they are needed. You know, one big message from the FEMA administrator, though, was that as much as they are working to put teams in place, the most important work starts at home. She said never drive through standing water, and that most importantly, never use a generator in your home, only outside. They are worried about fatalities that could be associated with this storm, and they want to make sure that some of those fatalities that can be avoided are done, that we get those messages out to try to make sure that people are kept safe. On evacuations, I asked them specifically if there was a time where it might be too late to evacuate. She said, like you said, Gio, that there might be some places where it is already too late to evacuate, that it is so important that you are checking with your local officials. The local newscast should be able to tell you exactly how much time you have, that there's large parts of the state where there is still time to evacuate, and so do so. They are hoping people will heed those warnings, and when you do evacuate, remember to grab medication, important documents, check on your neighbors, tell your friends and family where you are headed. And just really quick to talk about the size and scope of the federal response, just a huge operation that they have coming out of here. They're talking about sending thousands of generators. They have hundreds of Army Corps personnel on the ground. They have over 3 million meals ready to go, 3.5 liters of water staged, ambulances, hundreds of ambulances that they have sent to this area. The Red Cross alone says that they are ready to feed 600,000 people. They are still trying to meet new requests that Florida has asked and put in just today. They said they're still positioning and trying to get more equipment there to Florida, as the governor has asked for very specific things. But we heard, like you played at the top there, Gio, President Biden saying he has responded to every single request from Florida so far, and he is trying as hard as he can to get Florida everything they need at this point.
Yeah, right. Do not stand in that standing water. Do not get in your car in that standing water. It is incredibly dangerous. Mary Alice Parks, thank you so much there in Washington. We, of course, will hear from you later on in the broadcast. Diane?
Gio, thanks. And Sarasota is one of the cities in Florida expected to get hit the hardest. According to its website, Sarasota Memorial Urgent Care Centers closed yesterday as Florida braces for landfall, but emergency rooms are still open. President and CEO of the Sarasota Memorial Healthcare System, David Berender, is here with more. David, thanks for being here. You know, FEMA officials gave this update earlier, and they said their biggest concern is the storm surge, which is predicted to reach up to 18 feet. So how have you prepared for this?
So we've been in preparation mode now ever since the storm was first identified. We have mobilized our teams. We've mobilized people to make sure our facilities are ready for this storm, to make sure that we are can take care of our citizens and take care of our community as we do every day.
What happens to patients who are being cared for? I imagine they would be very difficult to move.
Well, so they're here. We have quite a few patients here right now, and we have probably 3,500 people here in our facilities right now. We mobilized our care teams, yesterday, locked down the facilities to make sure we had everything that we needed in place. And the people that are here, the patients that are here, are going to be very well taken care of.
David, your county's under a mandatory evacuation order. So what are you most worried about there in Sarasota?
Well, we're worried about the same things that you've probably been talking about. We're worried about storm surge getting to throughout our community. We're worried about wind damage. While we have hardened facilities, we certainly have some facilities that are more hardened than others. So when you're talking about a Category 4 or Category 5 storm coming through, it really puts a different perspective on everything that happens. We're very good at tropical storms. We're very good at the lower key hurricanes. This will test our abilities in our facility, but we're here for the community.
The staff that's working in those emergency care centers right now, how are they spending the next several hours as you await landfall?
So right now we're taking care of patients by patient to patient, but we're also preparing. So we are making sure that everything is where it needs to be. Our supplies are where we need to be. And quite honestly, as the storm keeps developing and we keep learning, having more data points around it, we are moving patients out of older areas of the hospital and moving them into more of the hardened areas of the hospital. We're continuing to monitor that in live time and making those decisions as we go along.
And David, I know that you're used to weathering smaller storms or weaker storms. Are you worried hearing about the breadth, the size, the slow moving, and the power behind this storm?
Well, certainly. I think everyone should be worried about it. I think you should take as many precautions as you possibly can. I think at this point in time where we are, we have the patients that we're going to have, we have the facilities that we're going to have, and we just have to make sure that we do everything that we can to protect the community and our public. And I have a lot of confidence in our people, and that's really what matters.
And we have heard throughout the morning that the time for evacuating is now over. For those who are staying behind in this storm, now it's time to hunker down. Within your facilities, is there any more that can be done in terms of preparation at this point?
I don't think so. I think that we have gone through a lot of preparation, but I do want to call out our people. We have, like I said, we have around 3,500 people here right now. These are people who have evacuated their homes or left their homes and left their families and come here to take care of this community. And they have sent their families off to other places. But our people that decide to come and do this, it's a mission, it's a passion, and it's one that we all are very grateful for them to put their lives on hold to take care of people.
All right, David Verinder, we appreciate your time today, sir. Wishing you and your patients and your staff safety throughout this storm. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And coming up, the U.S. Embassy in Moscow is warning American citizens to leave the country of Russia as thousands attempt to flee the new military draft. We have the latest on Putin's efforts to annex parts of Ukraine, plus continuing updates on Hurricane Ian after this. Welcome back. The U.S. Embassy in Moscow is warning American citizens to get out of Russia, saying it's becoming increasingly difficult to leave the country. The embassy says Russia may refuse to acknowledge dual nationals as more and more Russian men head for the border to avoid the military draft. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin appears to be on the verge of violating international law by declaring parts of Ukraine as Russian territory. Chief Foreign Correspondent Ian Pannell has the latest from Ukraine.
A mass exodus from Russia as Vladimir Putin drafts hundreds of thousands of men to help his struggling campaign in Ukraine. 66,000 Russian citizens have entered the European Union over the past week, nearly 100,000 entering Kazakhstan, and 100,000 more into Georgia. The crush to leave so great in part that it can be seen by satellite. ABC's Britt Clennett is on the ground in Georgia.
All these people behind me have had a days-long journey from Russia. They were checked at the border to make sure they weren't on the draft list. But these guys, they're relieved, they're exhausted, but they say they don't have any plans. They just needed to get out.
Dmitry spent 7 days trying to escape, breathless from 2 days on foot crossing into Georgia.
I don't want to kill people and I don't want to be killed. I don't need this war. And I I don't support Putin.
And as discontent in Russia grows, on the ground here in Ukraine, fears Russia may escalate as it concludes sham referendums in 4 occupied territories. Putin expected to formally annex them in the coming days. Unsurprisingly, the Kremlin now claiming over 96% of those who voted favour becoming part of Russia. But Ukrainian officials saying the elections were rigged, with some forced to vote at gunpoint. President Zelensky saying this farce in the occupied territories can't even be called an imitation of a referendum. Meanwhile, growing questions this morning around 2 damaged gas pipelines running from Russia to Germany. A Swedish Coast Guard video showing bubbles from a reported major leak under the Baltic Sea. Danish seismic stations recording explosions nearby.
Our thanks to Ian Pannell for that report. And yesterday, I had the chance to talk with the president of the United Nations Security Council, French Ambassador Nicolas de Rivière, about the war in Ukraine and the thousands of Russian men now fleeing that draft. Take a listen. And I want to bring in the French ambassador to the UN, Nicolas de Rivière, for more on this. Ambassador, thank you so much for being here. Now, you're the president of the UN Security Council for the month of September, and there have been calls to remove Russia from the Security Council. So is that realistic or even a possibility at this point?
Well, thank you for having me. I don't think this is possible. The UN Charter does not allow for this. I think to get Russia kicked off of the UN, you would need the approval of the Security Council, and Russia had the veto in the Security Council. So I don't think this is a realistic scenario. I don't think it will happen. What needs to be done is to raise the issue of Ukraine again and again in the Security Council, because this crisis is probably the worst since World War II. This is a major threat to international peace and security. This is a disaster. And this is a clear violation of the UN Charter of International Law. So everything should be done now to bring it to an end.
Now, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov defended the invasion of Ukraine to the UN, saying that it was the U.S. and its allies that are the aggressors. What do you make of Russia's arguments?
Well, I don't agree with Foreign Minister Lavrov. Of course, what the Europeans and the US are doing right now is helping Ukraine to defend itself, period. We are doing nothing more than that. So this is why we put Russia under sanctions. This is why we provide a lot of humanitarian relief to Ukraine. And this is why we also provide Ukraine with weapons and ammunition to defend itself. That's it. I think there is no other idea than helping Ukraine to defend its sovereignty. It's a free state. It's an independent state, and it should remain like this.
Now, Russians are fleeing the country in droves right now to avoid being drafted. What's the UN's position? Should the international community help these people who don't want to fight?
Well, it's obvious that a number of Russians don't want to be drafted. I think we just need to see the pictures on television, a lot of leaving the country. This is a clear sign of disapproval of what the Russian leadership is doing. I think we need to find a solution. I think they need to be taken care of abroad in the neighboring countries. It's a challenge, but I don't think we should leave them without any support. I think it's clear that they should be taken care of by the international community, and I think Europe will be open to that.
Now, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is calling Putin's referendum votes to recognize occupied territory a sham. How concerning do you think are these votes, and what would Russia claiming that territory mean for the international response?
Well, I think he's right. These referendum are sham referendum. They are clearly completely illegal. You don't organize a referendum in your neighboring country. It would be like the U.S. organizing independence referendum in Mexico and Yucatan, and it's just totally illegal, and it needs to be condemned. I just want to reiterate what the International Court of Justice has said as soon as March 16. The Russian invasion of Ukraine is illegal, a violation of international law, and the Russian troops should just go home. And these referendums are 100% illegal and a violation of international law. They have no legitimacy. Nobody will recognize that.
All right, Ambassador Nicolas de Riviere, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. And coming up, we have the latest updates on Hurricane Ian, as well as some of the day's other top stories. Stay with us. Welcome back to ABC News Live. A 14-year-old football player is dead and 4 of his teammates are injured after a shooting outside of Philadelphia High School. Police say 2 people jumped out of a vehicle and started firing. It happened the same day the mayor signed an executive order banning guns at recreation centers and playgrounds. Police have not released a description of the shooters or a possible motive. Veteran journalist Katie Couric says she's been diagnosed with breast cancer. In an article posted on her website, Couric writes that her cancer is, quote, highly treatable, and that she's already had a lumpectomy and radiation treatment. Her final round of radiation was completed yesterday. Couric is now stressing the importance of early detection and urging people to get their annual mammogram. And do stay with us. I'm Diane Macedo. ABC News Live will continue with more news, context, and analysis right after this.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.